And then we'll get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Susan Schuler, and I am so happy to host these special programs for drawing birds. We do this every other month, or I guess we are going to be doing this now, Karen, right? It's a fun time for us, and we are going to be going and doing a great horned owl today. And before we do this, we're going to, I'm going to read a story, one of my favorite child book stories, Owl Moon, and then we'll talk a little bit about the great horned owl before we actually go into drawing it today. So with that, we're going to start off with a story. And let me share the right screen here. This story is called Owl Moon, and it's by Jane Yolen. And I'm going to read the story itself, and you can follow along with the images there on the screen itself. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind, the trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us, the train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. I could hear it through my woolen cap Pa had pulled down over my ears. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sung out, trains and dogs, for a long time. And when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream. We walked toward the woods, Pa and I. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow with like little gray footprints following us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up. My short, round shadow bumped after me. But I never called out. If you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always says. I had been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long time. We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointed against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right there where I was, and I waited. He looked up as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silvery mask, and then he called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," the sound of the great horned owl. Hoo, 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 hoo. Again, he called out. Then again. After each call, he was silent. And for a moment, we both listened. But there was no answer. Pa shrugged and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said, sometimes there is an owl and sometimes there isn't. We walked on. I could feel the cold, as if someone's icy hand was palmed down on my back, and my nose and the tops of my cheeks felt hot, cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. You go owling, you have to be quiet. You have to make your own heat. We went into the woods. The shadows were the blackest things I'd ever seen. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry from the scarf over it, as wet and warm. I didn't ask what kinds of things hid behind the black trees in the middle of the night. When you go owling, you have to be brave. Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above us. It seemed to fit exactly over the center of the clearing, and the snow below it was whiter than milk in a cereal bowl. I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf over my mouth and listened hard. And then Pa called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." I listened and looked so hard my ears hurt and my eyes got cloudy with cold. Pa raised his face to call again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Hoo, 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 hoo. Pa almost smiled, and then he looked back. Hoo, 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 hoo. As if he and the owl were talking about supper or about the woods or the moon or the cold. I took my mitten off my scarf off my mouth and I almost smiled too. The owl's call came closer from high in the trees on the edge of the meadow. Nothing in the meadow moved. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with heat on our mouths and the heat of the words that had not been spoken. The shadow hooted again. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it landed on a branch. For a minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Then the owl pumped its great wings, lifted off the branch like a shadow without sound. It flew back into the forest. Time to go home, Pa said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud, but I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words or warmth, anything but hope. That's what Pa says. The kind of hope that flies on the silent wings under the shining owl moon. So that was one of my favorite storybooks. I don't know if anyone else has read that book before, but I see Todd has a question. So we have some questions. Why don't we go through some questions here? If you would like to unmute and ask a question, Todd Springer. Yes. Oh, we can't hear you, remember. You're on mute there. There you go. What would you like to ask?
We have done the Go Owling book before.
Oh, you read that book too.
Owl book.
You have read that owl book too? Okay, Brody, you want to say something?
I really like the book and all the sounds.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, before we go into drawing the bird, I'm going to share one more thing. Now, this is a real owls, and these are the real owls, and we're going to just see some of the colorations of them. Do you see that All About Birds, Karen?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, whoops. Yeah, I thought it didn't give me that green box that you see. So let's listen to the owl. Can you hear that?
I didn't hear it.
No?
Did not.
I'm not hearing it on my side either.
I
Oh,
can always use my identifier, Mom.
The first time I could hear it, was really faint.
might go again. Let me play this one. You hear that?
Yeah.
So have you heard this owl call before?
No.
You haven't. Well, now is the time of year we actually hear these great horned owls. And so this is the time where they're checking out their territories and finding a mate. And so we tend to hear them this time of year. Well, also in our area in central Wisconsin, we also hear barred owls very often. There's one thing as we go into drawing this. This is sort of a neat page called All About Birds. And I just want to share that these owls can have different colorations. This is all a great horned owl because great horned owls are found on almost every habitat in the United States. And they are non-migratory. So our owls will stay in one area. And you can see how their colorations, this one's from the Southwest, kind of the desert area, a little bit lighter. And so it blends in a little bit better with the desert scenery. This one is in the Pacific Northwest. So deep, deep, thick woods. And they have a much darker coloration. And then here in central Wisconsin or the northern parts, sometimes they even have a little white coloration on them to kind of more blend in with the snow, we assume. But look at this face. They have a very unique head with these tufts that Karen's going to tell us a little bit more about and have us draw. The other thing I want you to take note of is their brilliant yellow eyes. These great horned owls have a beautiful color eyes, and this face marking, this kind of flat face that they have helps them hear, they think. So it creates this kind of cone. So it filters the sound and they can narrow in into their prey. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing there. And Karen, can you guide us through how we would draw one of these great horned owls?
Yes. So, okay, first of all, want to make sure everybody has their supplies. For those that maybe have gone or attended this before, you always need a piece of paper. Today, we're going to be using just a regular pencil. And I have, or I should say graphite type pencils. I have a special drawing pencil, but you could just use your basically number 2 pencil. Maybe hopefully it has an eraser, or you can have one of these. Having an eraser, especially when you draw with pencils, is kind of handy at times. All right. And today we are going to draw the owl's, mostly just its face. And we're doing a vertical drawing this time. I'm going to show you what we're kind of going to go towards. This is what we're going to try to, get most of this in the next 45 minutes. So it gives you a little bit of idea what we're heading to do. Okay. So on your piece of paper, the first thing that we usually do is we start with some kind of circle. And in the past, I've talked about how birds are shaped differently, both their heads, their necks, their bodies. But as you just saw, we're going to mostly just do the head. And today, we're going to draw more of an owl, an oval. That's okay. So I'm going to just maybe start in the middle here, and I'm going to, make it kind of dark, and I'll bring this up close so that you guys can see it after I draw, but kind of draw an oval. All right. So I want to make sure you can see it. So it's a little, flattened at the top here. I'm going to make this a little darker. Okay. And then once you have your oval, something that we also do often is, this is really helpful to get some of the proportions there. So actually, I'm going to do my full screen so I can see what you guys are seeing. All right. Well, anyway. Okay, now when we draw our lines, this time we're not going to divide it in the middle. We're going to start a little bit over to the side, a little more on the right side, and draw a light line down, straight down, and then a little to there, if you can kind of see that. See, right now my angle, my view, I'm not being able to see it, but a little line down, and then another line across that's just not quite dividing it in half, but just maybe a little bit lower. Okay. those are going to be some of your important guidelines. So you don't have to draw them real heavy, but just so that you can see them. Those will be very helpful when we are drawing the next things like the eyes and the beak. So you got your oval with your two dividing guidelines. All right. Then the next thing, what we're going to do is draw the sort of like the eyebrows or whatever, that, you know, heavy things. So on a little bit up over here, we're going to draw this one. You can do a little bit darker because this one's going to kind of stay. And then over here, this one's a little longer. So I'll draw them and then I'll hold it up closer so that you can see how I did that in relation to the guidelines. Okay, so they're a little bit above, yeah, in between on either side of that up and down, the vertical line, and a little above the horizontal line. And those would be basically the kind of the eyebrows. The next thing, what we're going to do is make circles for the eyes. So when you make the circle, I'm going to make it and then I'll show you up close how it's going to come to come real close to that one guideline that you just drew. Well, you can kind of see that the bottom of that circle of the eye is going to touch that guideline, the horizontal one that you had. And you can kind of tell, if it helps you to, you know, start with a circle, to draw that, you know, even completely up and over that eyebrow, just so you feel like, oh yeah, that's a circle. Just part of the circle you can't see because of the eyebrow kind of hanging up over it. All right. And then after you get that outside eye part, then we're going to draw another circle inside there that just kind of follows the other one. And that is basically kind of making the pupil of the eye. All right. So then after, let's see, speaker. After you do that, then we're going to add the ear tufts. And as you saw, that's very distinct about this great horned owl. I have different shapes of tufts up there. And so from this one, you know, put your pencil right about here, or right above, let's say where this eye thing comes, right about here. And then you'll go up. And then where that guide line, the top one comes, find that and go over. All right. So that is the, maybe I'll make that a little darker because I know sometimes that doesn't show up very well here in this drawing. You can kind of see, I hope, where that connects or how it meets that vertical line. Okay. Now to do the other ear tuft, I like to think about how far over, so it kind of matches over here. And maybe here's what I'm going to try and do. If you want the ear tufts to be about the same height, just kind of take your pencil across and make a little dot there. Because then that'll kind of tell you, oh, that's how far up that ear tufts should go. And then you can take your pencil and go up to that dot and then back down to make the other ear, or make that right ear tuft. Now, what I learned was they often call them ear tufts, and they have nothing to do with hearing. They aren't exactly sure what they're for. Sometimes maybe territorial things, but they're really not always sure. They're just tufts of feathers. Their ears are down further. And again, they have nothing to do with hearing, but we call them ear tufts because they look like ears on a lot of other animals. All right. So that we got our ear tufts, or, oh, they're called plumicorns. Plumicorns. That's another name for them. And I thought that was kind of a fun name to word to say, plumicorns. All right, now we're gonna draw more of the head. We're gonna take this, and this side, the owl's kind of looking a little to the side. I want you to just take this and go straight down for a little bit. So we go straight down. And then on the other side, because the owl is facing, we're going to come over, start right about where that line, the horizontal line ended. Put your pencil right there and kind of come out a little further. We're getting really close to, we just have another couple important lines to finish what I'll call the outline of the face. Then after that, we're going to start adding more detail. Okay. Now, the next part I'm going to do is to draw the beak. And this is where you're going to start sort of at the intersection of that, your two guiding lines. And one part comes over a little, and it's going to come down to the bottom of your face there, and then come up. So, but it's all right around where those two lines intersect, and it comes down to the kind of that bottom guiding line of the face, of that oval that you drew at the beginning. Okay. And I don't know if, Susan, if somebody says I'm going too fast or anything, just let me know. Now we're going to draw.
No, you're doing great.
Okay. So about halfway through the beak, you know, you put your pencil there, and then we're going to go kind of up and around and there. So I'm going to draw these a little darker so you can see it here. I'll get it closer in a minute. There. Okay. Now those kind of lines are a little, there's just a little curvy, and it may, yeah, just about halfway through, coming out halfway from the beak, or the middle of the beak, I should say. Now at this point, here's an idea, and I'm going to do this. And if you don't need to or don't have an eraser, that's okay. But I'm going to erase the part, or at least lighten that bottom part of that oval that was our starting, one of our starting lines. So we'll color, or we'll draw over it, I should say, but it just doesn't need to be quite so prominent. There. All right. So now we get to start adding a little bit more detail. And if I, excuse me, let me, as I've often said, drawing should be fun. It's a process. And I just always want you to not get frustrated. The more you do it, the more you oftentimes enjoy or get better. But at the same time, this is just meant to be fun. So as we do it, just do your best and enjoy. We're going to add a little bit more detail now to the face here. Around the eyes, the feathers look like they're kind of coming out and around, out from the eyes. So I'm just going to start drawing some lines out from the face here. I'll draw a bunch of them, and then you can kind of see a little bit more there. I'm just getting some for just some reference now. And this will be one of those drawings that you can always add more to it afterwards if you want, because I don't know with our time how far we'll get. All right. And we're going to also add a little bit of the, yeah, just add a little bit more. Now we're going to add a little bit more detail to the eyes. And when I've done this, how to have eyes, even though this owl's out in the dark, they need really big eyes to see the food that they're trying to catch, and also they have great hearing, so they can hear where the food is. But as this book was, even with the moon or something, there's always a little bit of reflection. So what I would like you to do is draw like 2 maybe little circles in there, and those are going to be our reflective little lights. And here, let me color, or fill in, I should say, around them. These little circles up there in the pupil. And then I'll get that filled in, and then I'll show it to you a little closer. And that is going to make it look like there's light reflecting off of the eyes. Okay. So there, so if you can get those little circles in there at the top, kind of towards the top of the pupil, make the little circles first and then color in around those so that they stay nice and white. And at this point, you could just color them in just to get some basic color. You don't have to make them super dark right now, but later if you want to go back and make them really black, then it's going to start looking really, really cool. That's one nice thing about drawing, or the one thing to learn or know about drawing with pencils, is that if you have some really dark areas and then some real light areas, that's all going to add to the drawing looking more realistic. All right, now the eyes, that other part, the iris, now we've got a little bit of a shadow to the top here where the eyebrow is kind of coming over. And now this is where I take my pencil and I just lay it on its side, see, like this. And that's a good way to not pointy, but on its side. And then you can get that kind of look there. And so I am going to just add a little shadow on the top here under the eyebrow. And then I'm also going to add some shadow here underneath this eyebrow under the eye. So I'm just kind of adding a little more depth. All right, so I'm kind of doing this a little quickly just so that you can get a feel for it. You can also kind of make this darker here. Now we're just more making those eyes look like they're really kind of sunk into the face there. Okay. We can also start making things that look like the feathers up above. And this, I'm just going to take my pencil again, the side here, and just sort of make some little lines, light lines that kind of go along, follow the same angle as the eyebrows. And then, and this is kind of a fast way to make it look a little bit like feathers for now. Then oh, I just remembered. I want to keep this little part right above the eyebrow kind of white. Oh, I should, all right. So let's kind of make that just a real light line so that we know to keep that a little lighter. And then I kind of cross back and forth on those. So I'm kind of going back and forth, crisscrossing above the eyebrows and leaving a little white spot up above the eyebrow. All right. Then let's see here. Next, I think we'll go to put a little bit more detail into the tufts here. And they actually kind of look like ear, sometimes with the way the feathers, like a little bit of like a dog ear. So like I'm going to add a little bit of line here and a little here. And here I'm going to kind of make it look like it's a little bit more feathery. All right. And then, I mean, again, using the side of my pencil, and I'm just going to kind of color in a little bit here to give that a little bit of a look of feather. You can add some little lines to, you know, kind of make it somewhat feathery looking. And kind of we'll just do a little bit of that over on this other side as well. We kind of want to make it look a little more feathers. And since we're up there, I'd like to also start making some depth for the head. And I'm taking, again, the side of my pencil, and I'm just sort of going along this edge here. And I kind of press hard up on the line, but then as I go down, I press lighter. So then that starts giving the head some kind of shape there, or depth. And then we're going to also do that kind of over on this side. So again, I'm using the side of my pencil, just giving it some depth. And then, and you can kind of fill it in a little bit more here. All right. Now this with the owl, the great horned owl, this part around its eyes and face is really pretty distinct. So we can make this a little bit darker here. And I'm just kind of going along here and adding a little bit more depth. And pretty soon here, we're going to start going into the beak. So keep adding maybe some lines to make it look like, again, those feathers are coming out from the eyes. And I'll just, again, I don't know, you can kind of see, it looks like I'm probably just scribbling, but that's kind of a little bit of sometimes what drawing is. You just sort of sketch a little bit, scribble a little, maybe erase something that doesn't look quite right, or add a little bit more, push a little harder, push a little lighter. So that's part of exploring how to draw with just a regular pencil. And you know, how you angle the pencil and how hard you push. All right. let's add a little bit more detail to the beak for now. All right, the beak, I'm going to, right in here, we're going to make this a little bit darker on this side. And then it actually kind of has a little bit of a line here to, let's see here. Kind of just there. Kind of divided that a little bit in half, and I'm making it darker along the sides of the beak. I'm making, yeah, a little bit more depth there for the eyes there. Now, the one thing the owl, this great horned owl also has is this sort of little, like a white, sort of it, at least some have. So I'm just sort of following that line there. And that's going to be, that's a pretty fairly white area here. This part here. And then below that, let's see. Well, I think I'm gonna add a little bit more detail to the eyes. I'm gonna make them a little bit, fill in a little bit more here. And I'm lightly coloring, just putting a little real light pencil touch on the eye pupil there. So that area isn't super bright white. It's a little bit, got some depth to it. And then I'm also filling again a little bit more on the side here. So just again, real lightly color, drawing with my pencil. Along these edges. All right, how are we doing? Okay. I want to put in, I'm looking at my own little thing. So let's put a little bit more time on the beak, because that's going to be kind of cool to see that. So it has one area that's going to be pretty white, and I'm going to kind of draw that in here, sort of like a little circle. Can you kind of see, I think, where I made a little, well, not a circle, an oval, or, you know, down the center of the beak. That area is going to stay pretty white. And I'm going to just lightly, with, again, the side of my pencil, kind of color along that. So that area stays fairly white. You can, it doesn't have to be a sharp line, but just kind of softened around it. All right. I'd like to draw a little bit under its chest then. The other thing that the owl has is sort of this area. I want you to take your pencil underneath it's almost like looks like a bib almost, or can at least on some. So I'm going to take this and sort of make like what would be maybe sort of like a bib. All right. So I'm doing this sort of lightly. And this is why I wanted to erase this other line here earlier, because that doesn't need to be quite so obvious. So you've got that almost like maybe like a mustache looking thing, and then a bib underneath it. And that bib area, that has often the feathers look like they're kind of making a line So I'm gonna just take this and kind of make a little line following that mustache, and just a few different lines real kind of close together. And just sort of, again, real light scribbly. And so this is where you're drawing over. If you still see that oval that you started with, this is where you're kind of covering it up as well with this. And then from there, the other feathers are darker, and they're a lot smaller. They like, so this is where it's even like the head here. It's sometimes, if you maybe a way to make it look like little feathers is just a bunch of little darker lines that kind of fill in around, or spaced out between the others there. And that's what I'm going to kind of do here as well. I'm going to just maybe make some darker lines, little spots. And then, again, I know I'm kind of maybe going a little bit fast, but again, I want to get, and then after that, you could then take your pencil and just really lightly, very on the edge, to fill that in a little bit more. With pencil, one other thing you can do is sometimes take your finger and smudge it a little. So like you can draw it, put some pencil down, and then smudge it a little. Let's try, I'm going to try that again. Some pencil, and then that way it looks a little softer. But up here, yeah, you could even try that up on here, like say, ooh, maybe it's going to look more like, again, not so many individual lines, but a little bit more like feathers. And this area is going to be darker here, where I need to make this all a little darker compared to this kind of bib area that is a little lighter color. So yeah, I'm just going to fill it in. I was just thinking about the book with the kids, the child going out there. If you're ever lucky enough to see an owl out in the woods, the thing that I have been always so amazed at is how silent they can fly. They have huge wings, huge, and yet you don't hear anything. Their wings, the feathers are really designed so that they don't make any noise. And it's really cool to just have that sort of, wow, look at that huge bird flying and you don't hear a thing.
Yeah, Karen, that's a lot because their wing structure, it almost looks like there's a little fur on there, and it's not. It's just the barbules at the end of the feathers actually kind of break apart. So it creates this almost soft fur-like structure. They're all feathers, but in it is amazing how they can be so silent that way.
Well, that's one thing I like about this program is that when we've been trying to draw different kinds of birds and from different habitats, some that migrate, some that don't, some that live on the ground, some that live up, in trees or in maybe wetlands. And so, yeah, the other cool thing about owls, yeah, they have this very sharp beak to, grab things, very sharp talons. But maybe some of you've seen it or already know, but they eat their food whole. And so think of that. They just gulp a mouse right on down. And then later they digest that and their body says, I don't want all these bones and maybe, sometimes fur and stuff. So their stomach will form all like a pouch or well, becomes a pellet, let's say, and all the bones are wrapped inside, and then the owl regurgitates it. And so you might find owl polyps out below a big, let's say, white pine. And those are so interesting to open up. They're very basically kind of clean. They're just, again, bones and some fur, if that, but they're fun to find. I always think that those are special things.
Madeline, do you have a question? I see your hand is raised.
We were playing in the woods. It was more winter time than now, but I was running in the woods because we were playing a game, and I saw a snowy owl.
Ooh, special.
Oh, now
Favorite
that
animal is owls.
I saw one question. Are we going to do the bottom? Today, we're not going to, just again for time. But the one thing that, this is something you could do a little bit later. And I want to just show you how it starts, how it looks when you start, and that you can add again to your drawing. And this is just more about drawing in general. Sometimes you can make the background really dark to add more depth and drama, let's say, and to your drawing. So with an owl, this seems like a really good time to do this. So maybe I'll just show you what, like on this particular one, what I did. I started drawing it really black here. And this is where, if you get it tucked right up next to the owl and really fill it in, then look how that starts looking really cool. You can almost imagine that. And so again, using the side of your pencil and really filling that in so it's really dark. And you can decide how far down to go, how far out, and that becomes part of the art of all this, is that you start creating your own drawing, and what do you want to leave in, what do you want to take out. And so, but this is something that is really neat for, especially an owl, to have that, like it's sort of out in the dark. All right. This one looks better than my other one. But it's, yeah, every time it's different. That's the other thing when you draw. It's really hard to just completely do it all the same every single time. Let's see. All right. And yeah, those, now the ear tufts, again, those, maybe if you want to try, making the edges a little bit more, yeah, like I said, sometimes erasing or, adding to them. Guess, yeah, we got like 10 minutes, but I don't know, we can just kind of keep working on this. Or as we do this, talk about the owls or see if you have any questions. I'm just, like when I draw, sometimes I have music on, and
You're the one who wanted to.
and sometimes maybe here, like you can do some little cross hatching too, see how that might look, to get that sort of that look of feathers.
Can we
Sometimes
share?
I'll have a pencil and I do a lot of real little detail. And
Can we share ours?
yeah, how about everybody share what you've been, how far you've gotten? That, I always like that. So, ooh. Okay, hold it up. Yeah, to the camera. Great, Joy. Oh my goodness, you guys are great. Oh my goodness. So many good. Wow, that makes me really excited to see how you're doing so well. Yeah, see, just a regular number 2 pencil, you can do a lot with those. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for everybody sharing. This looks really cool. And yeah, so with drawing, when you make like those eyes really black and or the really like part on the side of the nose, you add those. Oh yeah, see those eyes are really, I'm just seeing they really start standing out and then kind of makes that pop. That's one of my favorite times of drawing with a pencil is that, you know, you have all that sketching time, but at some point you're going to really start making that drawing look really much more alive and detailed. And that's when you make like those little darks here, like at the tip of the beak here, or on the eyes. And I saw a lot of you already had that. That looks really great.
And if you have yellow, the eyes on the great horn is really a bright yellow. You can add the yellow around there to give that color.
Yeah.
That's in their eyes.
I don't, maybe this time, I'd say this would be one of those things you guys can just maybe keep going a little bit on your own. I wanted to concentrate more on the face for a change. Other times we've done the whole body, you know, and we've looked at the feet and what kind of, talked about where they would live, what kind of things they would maybe catch or do with their feet. So this time just try something different because that's the other thing. This is all art and drawing. It's not just about the bird, but I have to thank all those who voted for what bird to draw. That was a neat thing. And so Susan told me that the top 2 choices, really high and above most all the others, were the ruby-throated hummingbird and the great horned owl. And those 2 were really pretty close. So we're real excited that in May, when we do this again, we're going to do the ruby-throated hummingbird. And do you think we should use colored pencils or just gray pencils?
Colored pencils.
Say it out loud. Say it out loud.
You think so? For a
Kai saying
ruby-throated
colored.
hummingbird, I agree. Oh my gosh, get your colored pencils ready, or paints or charcoals or whatever you want, because we're going to need some bright colors. We'll draw the male because they're the really
About the man. AT&T TV has it all. That means all the basketball.
ready for that.
Todd, did you have a question, or Todd Springer video? Who you have your hand raised for that? Want to ask the question?
I think we should all raise our hands if we want to do colored pencils.
Oh yeah, so you're
Okay.
raising your hand for colored pencils. Yeah, I agree. Ruby-throated hummingbirds are beautiful. I also want to share a little surprise too. The Junior Audubon is going to be sponsoring a bird banding event in May. And I wanted to let you all know first, because we're going to require people to sign up because we have to control how many people are there. But it's going to be, I think it's May 29th. I'll send a notice to everybody. But if you wanted to go bird banding at Schmeekley Reserve, and we're going to be capturing some of the birds, and we can show you up close what some of the birds that we capture and why we do that, the research that we do. That's a special event that's going to be outside. We have to wear masks and we have to be very safe. But I will send more information about that program. So in May, we're going to have 2 programs, one for the ruby-throated hummingbird, and then one with an outdoor event that will have bird banding for youth, Junior Audubon program. So something exciting to look forward to in May itself. Does anyone else have any questions before we end up finishing up today?
Like with, are these videos posted anywhere so we could go back and look if we wanted to draw them again?
Yeah, absolutely. After I do record them and then I post them on the Aldo Leopold Audubon website. So if you go to our YouTube channel, I'll drop the link in right now.
Okay.
My son says, Mom, you have a YouTube channel? Yeah, Kai, we have a YouTube channel. So on the website, aldoleopoldaudubon.org, the link is there. And if you go to the website, there's a link where we have the YouTube, I think what the website's showing right now. Oh, Kai boy. You can click on the YouTube link here. And it brings us to the channel where we have all the videos from the, oops, I'm in the admin side of this. Sorry about that. But anyway, if you click on that, it'll go to the recordings of all the programs we have with Audubon. So yes, if you wanted to do the cardinal, we've done the chickadee, we've done the wild turkey, and now the great horned owl. So those should be the 4 videos so far. And then we're going to be adding the ruby-throated hummingbird. That'll be our 5th program of the year. Other questions? Ooh, Todd you added some yellow to the eyes, I see.
Yeah, the yellow and some of the black background. Cool.
All right, everyone. I want to thank you again for being here. Go ahead and sign up for the ruby-throated hummingbird program coming up. And we hope to see you in May.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.